Hey everybody, my name is Brian Sweeney. I'm the format expert for P90X. The video you're about to watch is a mashup of blocks from previous rounds that create a complete brand new P90X Live workout. Watch the mashup anytime you want to switch things up in your class, giving you more variety for your programming. You can use any P90X Live music from your library, just be sure to match the music with the same protocol so that the timing and the music cues match up. Watch the overview video for the protocol and moves for each block, and you got yourself a brand new mashup workout. You're gonna look like a superstar, so enjoy.
It's time for the upper strength overview. The protocol is ladder down, and the equipment needed are dumbbells. Remember, there are 4 exercises, and we're gonna start with 8 reps of each, then 6, then 4, then 2. Each set lasts for 3 minutes total with a don't stop cue at the halfway point. So you don't need to remember when your participants are halfway through it. You're going to hear that don't stop cue that's going to let you know. And that's when you can let your participants know to push hard. They're already halfway done. Not everyone's going to finish the ladder. Some may make it all the way down to 2, and if they do, that's fantastic. They get a little extra rest. If they make it to 6 or they make it to 4, that's okay. Wherever they are is perfectly okay, and they should remember what they hit on that first set and try to do their best to match it on the second set. It's not a competition with anybody else in class. Everyone's going to count their own repetitions too, which means that people will be working on different moves at different times. So as a class instructor, to manage that, just know that everyone's going to be working at their own pace through the exercises. There will be a 1-minute rest in between each set. Let's get started with the first move. It's a Hindu push-up, and I'm going to have Rollins face the side so you can see the setup for this move. Let's start in a downward-facing dog or an inverted V position. Heels back, hips are high, arms are extended, fingers spread wide. He's going to initiate the move by drawing his elbows in close by his ribs, skimming his chest to the floor, pushing up, up, and away to that upward-facing dog, eyes facing forward, ears away from shoulders, nice long neck and spine, and he's going to contract his core and lift his hips to push back to that start position. Let's see one more just like that. Elbows in, press up, up, and away. Draw the core in, push back through the hips. Traveling forward and back will count as 1 repetition for this move. You want to show the modification? Okay, so starting in that downward dog again, downward facing dog, he's going to initiate the move just the same way, elbows drawn in, but when he makes it to the floor, he's going to gently put his knees down as he extends to that upward facing dog, and then just like we did on the beginning, hips back, engage the core to push back to that downward facing dog. Nice job. Thank you, Rollins. Let's move on to the rear delt shoulder raise. We're going to need some dumbbells for this one. Let's have you face side on there. We're going to start with feet about hips width apart. Nice grounded stance, palms facing front, and we're going to hinge. Initiate that move by sitting back, hips back first thing. The weights are going to come down about by the knees, and we're going to lift back and lower, activating the posterior muscles in the shoulder, strengthening the upper back and arms. Nice. To modify that move, it may just be a shorter range of motion, or maybe just a slightly decreased angle in the hinge. Nice work. Next up for the overhead tricep extension, Rollins is going to cross those weights in front, reach underneath, and swing those weights up and back overhead. He's going to start with his feet side by side, lifting that core nice and tall, lengthening, and extend all the way up to the top and down. Notice how he's keeping his elbows pointing straight up towards the ceiling and down, not compromising that range of motion. If your participants need some help bracing their core, you might try a split stance, taking 1 step back, and that's going to help activate the core. Nice job. And finally, one last move, in and out bicep curls. Feet hips width apart, palms facing forward, shoulders down and back. Posture is everything. Curl to the front, bring it back down, slight outward rotation to curl to the side, and repeat, come back to the front. Each individual curl on this one will count as 1 repetition. And that's your upper strength preview.
Here's your lower strength overview. The protocol today is a drop set. This means that we're going to start with a weighted exercise, lose the weight, and follow up with a body weight exercise. It's really challenging. 2 identical sets, and we bring this block home with a double maximizer at the end. We're going to start off looking at the exercises with dumbbells. If you use a different piece of equipment, you can skip forward now. You ready, Ron? It's a goblet squat, one of my favorite squatting exercises. The setup is really important. It's not really tricky, but it's important that you get them in the right position right from the beginning. So you want to cradle the dumbbell, bring the elbows close, feet about shoulder width apart. From there, everything else is easy. Squat. Push the hips back, allow the knees to track forward over the center of the feet. Range of motion, well, it depends on their flexibility. They can drop butt beneath knees. For most people, you might want to recommend stopping butt right around knee height. If you want to regress this move, it's really quite simple. Use a lighter weight or maybe even lose the weights. I do recommend, if they're not using any weights, that they still use their arms, maybe crossing in front and lifting the elbows high, because it gives them the same effect and the same benefit of the goblet squat, which is great posture. It forces your class to actually lift the chest. Once we're done with this, we lose the weight and we go into a jump squat. We drop down, cross the arms, and then jump up. Now, the point of differentiation here is that when they sink down, you want them to freeze in the bottom position. So you don't want them to bounce in this move. You want them to freeze, hold it, and then drive from the legs as they jump. So hold, and then try to get as much height as possible. The modification here, if you want to pull it back, is squat, and then rise up on the balls of the feet so the heels lift up. So it's like a precursor to a jump. These are the first two exercises. All right, so let's take a look at the second two. The first one is an alternating lunge complex. Dumbbells, light, moderate, maybe. Depends on the strength of your participants, and sometimes it can vary from guys and girls in your class. You start off with a backward stepping lunge, followed by a side lunge, and then stepping forward into a full lunge to the front, and then do the other side. Things to think about here. Oops, sorry, man. Things to think about here is stride length. It's really important, and that's the most common thing I see in class, is that my class participants don't step far enough. So really encourage your class to take a leap of faith and really step back far. So what you want to be looking for, you can drop the weights for now, man, is as they step back into a lunge for me, please. You want to have the front knee roughly at a 90-degree angle. It's okay if the knee travels forward past the ankle slightly, but you want to have roughly a 90-degree angle, and the range of motion is you want the front thigh to be roughly parallel with the floor. You also want the back knee to be just behind the hip. Gives you better spinal alignment. And you can also check range of motion with knee in line with ankle. Sorry, you can come up, man. In the side lunge, show me a side lunge. You step out to the side. It's also important with the stepping distance. Chest needs to be square to the front. Knee needs to be tracking over the foot. This foot pretty much stays planted. That's it. Forward stepping lunge. Good thing to check here is check their knee alignment, that the knee is actually bending right over the center of the foot. It's really important. Once people get fatigued, what happens is the glute starts to disengage and the knee can start traveling inwards. So encourage them to gently push out towards the outer edge of the foot. Keep the glutes engaged. If you want to regress this move, it's really quite simple. Once again, you would just eliminate the weight or shorten the range of motion. We move on. From here, this is a fun one. It's a jumping squat lunge, really challenging. So we start off with jumping out into a squat. From there, we jump into a lunge, back to a squat, back to a lunge, other leg, and repeat and repeat and repeat. The point of differentiation here is not so much about height, how far off the ground you can come, but it's how deep you can stay in the legs throughout the work. Really challenging. Modification for this would be just step. So squat, step back into a lunge, squat, and alternate. Nice job. Awesome, thanks. As I mentioned earlier, this block is brought home with a double maximizer. Really challenging. 2 minutes of work with only 30 seconds of rest in between. And what we had is the power speed skater. You've probably seen a speed skater before, but maybe not quite like this one. This is one of my favorite moves. It's really cool because it incorporates so many different aspects of the lunge. Okay, from here, you're gonna jump to the side. I'll move out of the way. It's got long legs. Now the point here to really make to your class is to make sure that when they land, they stop. They absorb the impact into the leg, they sink forward, and they stop the move before they launch off again. If you want to make the move harder, what you can encourage your class to do is push off further, jumping a little bit further. But the technique is pretty much the same, as you want them to freeze, absorb the weight into the leg, check their knee alignment and so on. And then there's one more option, and this one is you can take a little bit of a break. This one is really, really challenging. We add a little bit of a hop as we switch directions. The move is the same, and you want the class to feel the same. The challenge comes from them jumping more up, so the trajectory changes and they're jumping more up, and they have to absorb more weight into the landing leg as they sink down, so it makes the move more challenging. Should we try it? Let's do it. So you jump up and across. A couple of technique tips to think about. That's awesome. Is as they land, make sure they're tipping forward at roughly a 45 degrees. They're maintaining their posture by pulling back, and you can rest. Rolling the shoulders back, getting a little pinch between the shoulder blades so they keep the chest open, and then really absorb the landing into the leg. So they always need to land with a soft knee. And that's your maximizer. You feel it? All right, good job, man.
All right, instructors, in the Cardio X block, your protocol is triple sets. A triple set is when you do 3 moves back to back to back. We're gonna do them all for 1 minute each. So that's 3 minutes of cardio before you get your first rest period, which will be 1 minute. And we're gonna work 3 sets of those. So this cardio is a killer, but I want you to focus on ramping up the moves. Start slow and gradually increase your intensity as you go with each move. Your first move is a log jump. And now you can watch Ellen, she's gonna be modifying the moves here. Max and I will be turning it up. So a log jump is up and over. I want you to focus on your core and your knees and land nice and soft toe ball heel. Or you can step and step. Move number 2 is a frog jump. You're going to open up your hips, wide squat. Your range of motion determines how low you go. You can't touch the floor. And the move is jump forward and jump back. And I think Ellen's probably walking forward and walking back. Yes. Our third move, which is gonna be the most intense of the cardio block, is a 180 burpee. And we're gonna be using a plank with that. So we're all gonna turn to the side. We're gonna go down into a plank position or step out for Ellen's sake. Come in, jump up and over, plank out again, and jump up and over. Now your focus on that burpee move is core and plank and not sagging your hips, keeping good form the whole time. You may need to instruct your class that they can go to the modification at any time they need to. This is an intense block. Have some fun with it.
This is the X-Core overview. The protocol is intervals, dynamic and isometric. For each of the 5 moves, we'll alternate between dynamic core strength for 40 seconds with a complementary isometric hold for 20 seconds to increase that overall strength of the working muscles. This block will target 5 orientations for multi-plane work. Let's begin with that diamond crunch. Let's lie back on the floor. First thing, noticing that we've got the low spine pressed into the floor. That's most important. Then we're going to connect the toes to create that diamond shape in the legs, hands back behind the head, and begin that crunch by drawing the elbows towards the knees, drawing your ribs to hips, while trying to maintain that spinal connection with the floor, which is not easy with that large external rotation in the hips. If that rotation is too much, your participants have the option to decrease that range in the hips and to decrease the range of motion on that crunch. The next move is, let's not forget about that hold, that isometric hold. We almost forgot about that. Hold that crunch at the top and hold right there for just 20 seconds. So it's 40 seconds dynamic with the movement, 20 seconds to finish it out with the hold. Then we can move on. V-up twist. Sit up tall, stack the arms, raise the legs, and we'll begin by extending the legs out first and twist as you draw the knees in. Extend out and twist, keeping that core stabilized. This is going to be a true challenge to your core as you work against gravity and as you work against the weight that your legs are creating. Make sure that you're feeling the core engaging and not your hip flexors or your low back. If you need an option to take a little pressure out of your low back, put the heels on the floor and raise one leg at a time. For that last iso hold, let's get back to that leg raised position. We're going to raise both legs up into that V-sit, arms extended out if you can for that last 20 seconds. And for the modification, heels down. Let's move to the side plank crunch. One elbow down, the other arm is raised while the feet are stacked. Notice how Rollins is lifting up, up, and away from the floor, not sinking into that shoulder socket. This move is going to be a crunch up to the top and then back to neutral. We're not sagging the hips. Let's see a few more just like that. Up and back to neutral. Up and back to neutral. It finishes at the top in that iso hold for 20 seconds. And let's see what some modification options might look like. We might put that top leg in the front and have a split stance and work the move just the same way. If that's not working for you, the other option is to put that bottom leg tucked in behind and bent. Raise this leg off the floor, keep it parallel with the hip if you can, and you can continue that dynamic movement. The next move is single leg hip lifts. So we're going to lie back for this one. Arms crossed over chest. Lift one leg in the air. And we're going to make sure that that knee is parallel with the bent leg knee. He's going to lift his hips high off the floor, engaging that glute. This is going to be a true challenge to your glute activation, your back activation, your core strength, and it's really going to promote hip, knee, and ankle stability on this move. The hold is going to be at the top for just 20 seconds. And release. A modification on this move would be arms down. The spine stays connected to the floor, and we're going to work this at a bent leg. Same idea for the dynamic, lift and lower, iso hold at the top, and that's your single leg hip lift. Moving on to that last move, bird dog, with alternating arm and leg lifts. So we're going to start in a plank position, following all the plank rules that we know and love. Weight in heels, hands are lined up just under shoulders. Rollins is going to do his best to lift one arm and one leg without letting the torso rock side to side. The goal here is not speed, it's stability, it's balance, and control. It's an integrative movement pattern that works the front and back of the core simultaneously. Let's see what the hold looks like. It's a super plank. Rollins is going to walk those hands forward, feet back, stretching and creating space between his fingertips and his toes, and creating a parallel line between his spine and the floor. You might shake a little bit. It's a challenging move. You can rest. Come on out. Let's see the modification for the bird dog. Starting in a quadruped position, lifting one arm and one leg, still working balance and control, but taking a great deal of pressure out of your low back. And that is your dynamic core overview.